Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the anatomy of a growth loop, and I'm going to give you the 5 ingredients to make it successful. First of all, to talk about the kind of main problems that we see out there at the moment is that most brands try to build a funnel before they understand what brings users back. Okay. With an over reliance on funnels, brands are going to start hurting and very, very soon, if not already. And they're even going to start dying off as a result, right? So, based on our own research, we found that less than 10% of companies actually design a growth loop intentionally. And there are some people and businesses out there that do have these natural growth loops, whether they've built them intentionally or not. It's just about now the next stage of that, the evolution of that is learning how to embrace that and actually scale that activity and make sure that that micro loop is actually embedded well enough within the universal loop. And I'll get onto that in future videos. So, talking a little bit more about the problem and why this is important. So, uh, generally speaking, funnels are out, and general consumers are making this an absolute fact. Gen Z today, as of today, have a buying power globally of $450 billion. That is projected to be $12 trillion by 2030, less than 5 years. Okay, now this is important because it's typically those more younger millennials, but mostly Gen Z, who have actually decided the funnel isn't for us. They do not move linearly through journeys any longer. What we find is that they traverse between different apps and instances to not only get information but understand a brand and learn about the value that that brand offers. Okay, traditional funnels are once and done. So let me just demonstrate this really quickly for the sake of this. So this is something that you all should be familiar with. People go in at the top, they move through these different sections of the funnel to come out and purchase. This, in its kind of inherently, the funnel has been made to walk through just once and then drop off. So this is a once and done model, okay? And that's fundamentally what is not working with these younger audiences, of which their buying power is increasing day by day and kind of month by month, right? As they become more powerful and they continue to showcase this behavior frenetically going between different apps, they are also turning away from traditional search engines. And this is in kind of the use of AI and social media apps to hunt down what they need, want, and desire. It's as simple as that. We've seen it firsthand with this audience. We do a bunch of research on how people do this. Again, there's going to be more of that that's going to come out later on in the year. I can't say too much about it because, quite frankly, we don't have a huge amount of data. We are moving towards scaling that so that we can actually bring a little bit more information to these videos and to this information, into this topic. But yeah, people are not moving linearly. They're moving, they're bouncing around. If they cannot find value, then it's a real big problem. This group is also driven by community influence and value driven choices. So funnels traditionally force feed value wherever it possibly can and think that this is the only steps to get that value that a user needs to go on to actually make a purchase or make a significant commitment. But what we're finding is that people are moving through those different stages and then they're going off and going down another rabbit hole. They might come out of that and go down another rabbit hole. They might come out, like, they might reverse that rabbit hole, so to speak, and come out and go down a different path. And what they're doing there is they're trying to find ways to try to find the value which is going to fuel their commitment, and they're also looking for that influence. So to round that off really quickly, funnels extract value, but loops create it. If your loop misses just one ingredient, it is going to fall apart. And obviously, like I said, I'm going to give you the 5 ingredients to that now. As I mentioned, the funnel is designed to accomplish just one thing, like a sale, whereas a loop, is actually designed to compound. Not done that very well. To compound and to continue delivering on engagement, and significant commitments. Okay, so this is a very crude drawing, but what we tend to find with what is the definition of the growth loop is this closed loop circuit, essentially, of a new or existing user entering it, completing something of significance, moving through, and this is the output. And the output could be a review, could be a piece of content, could be talking to a friend, and that directly influences and correlates to a new user coming into the loop while the existing user remains within it. Okay. So the growth loop is designed to provide a compounding effect on the results, and that could be purchasing, could be social engagement, or other significant actions. And what we'll learn over the course of this series is that there are micro loops, a couple of which we're going to talk about today, and then they only kind of make up part of what I call the universal growth loop of company. Okay, so let's get into it. Like I said, I'm going to walk you through the 5 key ingredients to make every successful, to make your growth loop successful, and how you can apply it right now. So let's do that. Okay, so the first ingredient we're going to talk about today is the trigger. Now, this is what sets the loop in motion. Okay, so this is your new or your existing user. And today we're actually going to talk about this in relation to the company Slack. If you're not familiar with Slack, it's a DM tool that is widely used within businesses and communities to have direct communication with people. You can call, you can do whiteboards, you can share links, etc., etc. It's probably safe to say you know what that is. But what they do, and a good kind of example of this loop in motion, is the push notification function that Slack utilizes very well. And to kind of underpin this comment, a loop is only as good as its starting point. So if your starting point in your growth loop is weak, the rest of your growth loop is going to also be weak. Just as though you might have a really strong starting point, if the points in between that starting point and the loop closing itself and coming back in, if any of those points are broken, then you're also going to have a weak loop. So a bit about notifications. 6% of users engage more frequently with an app that sends push notifications, and that can increase engagement by 88%, and retention rates can go up as high as 3 to 10 times higher than normal. Okay. Now, Slack, obviously, you want to know when people are messaging, you want to know when you're needed, when you need to have your input on there. Push notifications start that loop of getting into the platform after doing something else, and then maintaining or keeping yourself in the platform with other communication that might be going on, or you're starting that communication with that other person, and therefore you are kind of sucked back into that platform exactly at the time when it's needed. Now, you might be like, oh, your push notifications are annoying, users complain about them, I hate them, so therefore I'm not going to implement them, or I'm going to utilize them. Just checking my mic. And what I would say to that is, like, yes, they can be irritating, but you need to make sure that you put them in a place where it's going to be valuable. So we ran a test that we moved a push notification prompt from onboarding, and we moved it to a way more significant place, and we immediately saw a rise of 25% opt-in, and saw that after the first month, retention went from 15 to 30%. This was because instead of being like, hey, you're going to need push notifications at some point in the future, we actually moved it to the point where push notification was necessary. So in the moment of Slack, if you think about, go back to if you've already onboarded, you get asked to send someone a message for the first time. That would be a fantastic time for that push notification prompt to trigger. You send the message, you get something back, and the app goes, turn on push notifications to be informed when this person sends you more messages. And you're like, of course, that's what I want. So that's a much more value-driven prompt, rather than at the beginning going, you're going to need this. And I'm like, well, you're probably just going to irritate me. So the likelihood is I'm just going to decline that until I might need to change it later. And even that's a faff, right? So make sure that if you are implementing push notifications for that re-engagement or that kind of trigger loop, make sure that they are valuable and that you are making sure the user understands that. Ingredient number 2 is the action. And this is around what valuable behavior does the user take. And so we're going to utilize the platform of Duolingo. And so once they've had that trigger point, they've got the notification. If you're familiar with Duolingo, it should be a daily interaction for those who want to keep up their learning of a new language. It's not always just about interacting with that notification and going to the place that's necessary. The difference between this and Slack is that Slack is you could just click on that to read something. You don't have to really put in any more physical exertion. Whereas with Duolingo, you have to tap and then actually complete something of significance. And this takes time, whether it's 30 seconds or 4 minutes, right? It doesn't matter. The user still has to do more. So you have to make sure that you're capturing the user at the right time in order to have them complete that action. Now, there are things that we go on to a little bit later in the fifth ingredient around retention and re-engagement that Duolingo does well, and that's with a streak or community-based action. And I know that if they send me a push notification, I need to complete my streak, otherwise I'll lose it. And that's a really big thing among the Duolingo community. I like to think that they've understood my average interaction time when I like to best interact with the platform, and then they have sent me. I've acted on a very data-driven process to send me push notifications at what they believe is the optimal time based on my previous interactions. I'm actually currently actively working to change that, so I'll be able to corroborate that information soon. But yeah, we want to make sure that there is a valuable action for the user to take once that trigger point has been completed. Okay, ingredient number 3 is the reward value creation. And this really comes down to asking what immediate value does the user get? In this instance, we're going to use Uber. Uber had an offer whereby you would get 50% off when you refer a friend. And what's interesting here is this wasn't just on one ride, it was actually on 2 rides. And not only would you get the 50% off, but your friend would also get 50% off on those 2 rides. Now, the key for this is understanding that the reward must feel instantaneous and tangible. So it is something that can be redeemed straight away. If you're sat with someone, hey, here's a 50% off code, sign up with Uber. We need to take a cab later. We get 50% off. Don't you want that? Hell yeah, I want that. Great. So there can be something that can be almost immediately redeemed. Okay. Now, what this actually helped to do was help create that network effect. So this is like a network loop. Okay. Whereby you're utilizing your close network, obviously keyword being here a friend, your close network, to also get in on this situation and join a platform which is hugely beneficial without having to make some grand sell as to why they need to download the app and use it. Okay, this offer, I did some research around this. The referrals demonstrated a 25% higher LTV or lifetime value compared to those who joined from other channels. So that 25% higher lifetime value compared to paid media. Okay, even with the discount code, Uber recorded a ratio between lifetime value and cost per acquisition of 12 to 1. So that means that the program more than paid for itself and likely far surpassed and outperformed any other media and source that they had working for them. Okay, so that is a huge thing. The network loop is incredibly powerful. And if you have the ability to utilize it, you should be utilizing it and scaling it wherever you possibly can. Okay, ingredient number 4. Very similar to ingredient number 3, but this is the sharing and amplification mechanism. So now we're getting into a bit more of a viral loop. And this is about how does one action bring in other people? And this isn't just a closed network effect. This is a en masse network. So people you may not even know or you have very limited kind of interactions with. So in this example, we're going to use Calendly. And specifically the flow that they have when you're trying to book a meeting with someone else. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with it, or just to refresh your memory, if someone sends you a Calendly link, you get to, first of all, you might have to choose the type of meeting that you want to book in. Then you can select a date and time. Then you put in your details. And what you'll find is that there is a link or a slide, a screen that will say, join Calendly for free. And what is very clever about that is you are, so Calendly are actually reaching their target audience, because it's like, well, you're booking a business meeting, you must be a business person that could benefit from this. They're hitting them at a time when they have their utmost attention. They have them in that moment and they're appearing in that space after something of significance. So their mental load is decreased because they're like, I just need to get this meeting booked. And now they're in a position where they're like, come and join us. Like, this is how easy it is, right? And in this particular example, the reason why this sort of like network, this en masse network effect, this amplification loop is so important and so prevalent is the fact that Calendly, between the years of 2020 and 2022, saw a doubling in revenue from $70 million to over $143 million. So in a 2 year span, this particular network loop, the amplification loop, helped them double revenue in the space of 2 years to those just eye-watering numbers. It's incredible. But not only that, it accelerated adoption. And as I mentioned, allowed them to show up in a time where they had the attention of their target audience. So they're not fighting for commercial space on social media. They're just tapping into where they already have their users' attention and just asking for one extra thing. But the ask is different. The first ask is for the person who shared the Calendly link. The second ask is for the business itself. And in this situation, they have created a win-win-win. The person's got the meeting. I've been able to book the meeting very quickly. They've asked a question and potentially got a new customer out of it. It's not a hard sell. It's very soft. If you want to do this thing, come and join us. It's very clever. Other examples of this, Apple and Gmail did this very well. If you were sending an email from your phone, you'd get that text at the bottom that says sent from my phone, my iPhone, or sent via Gmail. And there was some, I think in the Gmail one, there was a link and you could go out and you could create your own account. Very, very similar thing. You're catching the attention of people in the moment. Everyone read emails. Everyone wanted to jump on that. And they're like, this is something new or this is something better. I'm going to go with it. And so, yeah, the amplification loop is a big one if you can capture the attention of your target audience while they're doing or after they've done something else of significance. The fifth and final ingredient for a successful growth loop is the retention and re-engagement portion. And this is all asking about what brings a user back into the loop. So if we look at this again, this is the output. Then we want to make sure that once that user has completed the output, that instead of dropping out or going elsewhere, that they continue round back to the input and step one. Okay, so we want to make sure that they continue to be in your environment and no more than sort of like an arm's length away, and they can be on the periphery. That's fine, but to allow for something of significance to bring them back in. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. A company that does this really well, and I know because I do use this business, and I mentioned it before, it's Duolingo. So they utilize streaks. They have some kind of like in-game or in-app currency with gems. Sometimes there's the community challenge and the leaderboard. So they hit 3 of the major things to help with re-engagement and retention. And it is a matter of, if you don't continue to do this thing, you are going to lose your streak. But come and see how other people are getting on. And they kind of, at the end of those significant actions as well, which I think is actually the most important bit, before I drop out of the app for that day, they kind of go through, they show you your progress, they add things to extra bonus progress that you can get without much explanation. It's all fairly intuitive. And then they show your streak increasing by 1 day. And then there's there's like the affirmation in sort of like the call to action, so to speak, of making it to the next day. So they do this very well with milestones to help people kind of bed that into their mentality for that re-engagement piece. It's very much prevalent early on. Reach your first 7 days, do your first 30 days, hit your 100-day milestone. But they reinforce these at very clever moments during the journey to make sure that you are going to follow up with what you commit to. And so they do that very well. The retention and re-engagement, I haven't seen retention stats of Duolingo, but I imagine they are incredibly high, especially for those that want to commit to the app for a long period of time and actually commit to improving themselves. Okay, so that was the 5 key ingredients of a successful growth loop. The reality check of all of this is that if you are missing one of those ingredients, or one of those ingredients is not working strongly for your loop, for your brand, is that your loop is actually going to be more of a dead end than it is going to be a closed loop. And you're going to struggle to see that compounding effect if those things are not improved, and scaled. Okay. So what I'd love you to do, going away from this video, go and have a look at your product, go and have a look at your campaigns. Can you clearly spot all 5 of these ingredients? For those that you can, or even those that you can't, the ones that you can, understand or try and ask yourself, are these ingredients, are these points doing the most that they can? Are we optimizing this particular part of our loop to bring the most amount of results? Are we compounding those results on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? If you cannot spot any of some of these ingredients, make sure you understand how you can implement them. And if you have any thoughts or questions, I'd love to hear them. So drop them in the comments wherever you're watching this, and that would be fantastic. My next ask is subscribe to this channel or follow me wherever you're watching this for more teardown videos. We'll be doing these on a weekly basis. The next one is how paid media helps fuel loops, and how actually you can decide whether to scale back on your paid media and how you can provide organic momentum for your business. Okay, so until then, take care. See you in the next video. Cheers.